How's it going, everyone? It is Anime Outlet, and this is part 3 of What If Deku Had a Chaos Quirk. And now, let's begin. We cut forward 2 weeks to see Izuku holding a letter in his hand with a UA seal right on top of it. Izuku would smile looking down towards it before walking over to his father. He would slide it on his father's desk. "Is this what you wanted?" Izuku would say, smirking. "Well, I guess you made it, huh? Good luck. Yui's gonna be probably a lot harder." "I think you're overestimating it, father," Izuku would say, with another smirk written on his face. "All those kids, they didn't understand a thing you taught me, and they wouldn't have just understood it to the level I did. They were so much weaker than me. I can't believe it, actually. Are heroes really getting weaker?" "Well, if I were to explain this, heroes are actually getting stronger as generations pass. Eventually, the body's not going to be able to handle how powerful quirks are. It's just going to cause them to simply explode, trying to use such a powerful quirk. So, actually, they're getting stronger, but they might also be getting stupider. So, who knows? Well, good luck with school, I guess," he would say as we cut forward a week to see Izuku walking on the side of a highway. Izuku would be staring at all of the cars passing, zooming by him, as his green hair would flow in the wind, as semi-trucks would just zoom right past him. Izuku would look at them, just smiling. "I can't believe I made it. I honestly just can't believe it," Izuku would say, shaking his head, as he would end up making it into the UA campus. As Izuku would be walking, all of a sudden, an explosion would go off as a girl would come flying out of nowhere with rocket boots stuck on her feet. Izuku would look up before putting his hand up, grabbing her right by the collar of her shirt. Izuku would bring her down, but she would look at him. "Whoa, hot stuff, why'd you grab me? I'm just trying to test out my new invention here," he would say, looking towards Izuku. "Well, it kind of looked like you were in trouble," Izuku would say, smiling, showing off all of his teeth. She would look at him for a moment before whipping out a tape measure, measuring around his body. You're actually the perfect size for one of my inventions. Here, come on, come with me," she would say, pushing Izuku along. Izuku would just put up a finger, "But I'm gonna be late for class." "That doesn't matter right now, just come with me. You owe me one after all," she would say, shaking her finger in his face. Izuku would sigh for a moment before just giving up. "Alright, so what was this invention of yours you're talking about?" See, this full body suit, designed to give the user incredible strength," she would say, or just putting Izuku right into the suit in the support course classroom. As Izuku would be in it, he would stand in it for a second before moving his arms in a very mechanical way. "There's not much movement here," Izuku would say before balling up his fingers in a fist. He would look right towards a punching bag, winding back his fist only a couple inches as he couldn't go too far back, before exploding his fist forward right into a punching bag, going right through a wall. "Just like I thought. Makes everyone insanely strong," she would say, writing down a bunch of stuff on a clipboard before asking Izuku to kick another just punching bag. Izuku would look towards the punching bag for a moment, taking a step back before kicking it, exploding the punching bag as tiny little pellets would fall out of it. "Well, that concludes my testing," she would say, as right as she finished, the bell would ring, saying Izuku was late. Izuku would get out of the mechanical suit or saying goodbye to the strange girl that Izuku sadly didn't get the name of. Izuku would be walking down the hallways as he would finally end up finding Class 1A. However, all of a sudden, before Izuku could open the door, all of his other classmates would end up rushing off down towards the locker rooms. We cut back just a couple of minutes to see Aizawa slowly stroll into the Class 1A classroom. You would look around the class before seeing Izuku was strangely absent from, just his class. He knew Izuku was in Class 1A, his own class, so where was he? It didn't make sense. Why was he missing all of a sudden? You'd look around the class for a couple of moments before just sighing. Maybe that dumb kid actually accepted another school. It doesn't really matter anyway. I'll find another prodigy like him eventually, Zaha would say, thinking to himself. We cut back to see Izuku about to open the door before all his classmates would run off. Aizawa would give a blatant look towards the boy before handing him a PE uniform. You're late. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't care. Excuses are excuses. Please, just follow them. He would say, pointing towards this class that were slowly disappearing into the distance. Izuku would nod his head before exploding off using his legs, rushing off towards his class, easily catching up with them. Once Izuku would catch up with them, he would follow the boys into the boys' locker room before putting on his PE uniform. Once on, Izuku would stretch out for a second before asking what they were about to do. Some of the kids would look at him for a second before asking who he was, as they hadn't seen him in the locker room. Oh, I was just late. How are you late on the first day? Some kids would say and think in their head, looking with a questioning gaze towards Izuku. However, Izuku really just didn't care. As they would all walk out towards the dirt field Aizawa had shown them. Once there, Izuku would be thrown a ball. Although you were late, you did get the highest score on the entrance exam. So, please throw this ball as far as you possibly can. Izuku would nod his head before closing his eyes. You'd get into a stance, raising the ball above his head before bringing it back down, going with his arm right back behind himself before throwing the ball into the distance. As Izuku would throw it so fast, it would just disintegrate as fire would catch onto it, as it would then incinerate itself in the upper atmosphere. All of the class would look on in shock before Bakugo would end up walking up. I bet I could do better, he would say to himself before reaching out for a ball. The ball would be placed in the palm of his hand before he would wind it back, throwing it as far as he could, as it would only go around 1,000 meters or so. Izuku would look over to Bakugo, walking up to him, patting him on the shoulder. Good try, Bakugo. It appears you're still beneath me, though, Izuku would say with a smirk on his face. Shut it, Izuku. I'll pass you eventually, you would say. As Izuku would end up smiling on towards Bakugo, someone he hadn't seen in quite a while, at least not since his mother had passed away. As Izuku ended up saying this, all of the other kids would end up going, as the tests would end up going as well. Izuku, with his absolute just chaos quirk, would get first place, being pretty much good at everything he even attempted. All of the class would marvel at Izuku's power. It was so unique and confusing. They really just didn't understand it at all. Izuku didn't brag or explain it either. He knew if he wanted to keep his secret about him being with the villain organization of League of Villains, then he couldn't really say a peep or say anything at all. So with that, Izuku would end up be walking along the side of the highway once again, as a brown-haired brunette girl would end up rushing up to Izuku. She would end up looking towards him before saying, "Hey, what are you doing walking on the side of the highway?" she would ask, as Izuku would only look down towards her. I mean, you're walking on the side of the highway too, aren't you? Would say, looking towards her. Oh, well, yes, she would stutter out. Then why'd you bother asking, Izuku would say with a smile on his face, his green hair persona still active. Oh, This is just the way to my house, she would say, walking, as they would get off the highway and continue into a dark, deep, just bad neighborhood of the city that both of them lived in. Suku would say, "Oh, you live here too?" As she would nod her head. "Yeah, my family can't afford much. My father owns a construction company, but sadly, it's not going too well right now." "Oh, that's a shame. I'm sorry about that," Suku would say as she would quickly just shake her hands. "Oh, it's nothing," she would say with her face going just bright red. You don't have to be sorry for anything." No, it's alright," Suku would say, looking towards her. We cut forward a day as we see Izuku walk into class, kind of confused about the interaction he had with that one brown-haired girl. So, as Izuku would walk into class, sitting down in the only empty seat, you'd find out he was, strangely, and coincidentally, sat right next to her. He would look over towards her before saying, "What a coincidence. I guess we're sitting right next to each other." "Yeah, that is kind of a coincidence. So, what do you think we're going to be doing today?" "I'm not sure, but I heard from the third years the second day is always the first hero training class. So I guess that yesterday was just to judge our power, and this might be able to judge our skill. But that's only a guess," he would say as Uraraka would nod her head. "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." As they would all be sitting there, all of the sudden, All Might would rush into the room. "Good morning, UA students. It is I, All Might," would say, giving off a flex as all of the students would marvel on towards him. "Today, class, we are going to be doing an assignment called The Heroes vs. the Villains," he would say, yelling proudly, as all of the students would look on towards their new hero teacher, kind of with a confused look. "What do you mean by that?" some of the kids would ask. "Well, there's going to be two teams, the heroes and the villains. I'm not going to explain it much any further, as I assume most of you guys know what the heroes vs. villains assignment is by now." So, we cut forward to see Izuku standing in his hero costume, one that he had to submit before the school year even started. As Izuku would be standing in basically his hero costume from around season 3 and 4 of the anime, but this time in sort of a black and whitish style, kind of like what's in the thumbnail. So as Izuku would be standing there, some of the kids around him would look at Izuku's just uniform and kind of marvel at it. Well, I take that back. It's not black and white, as it's kind of like the uniform he has just in season 3 and 4, just the same exact colors, just without the braces and like the hood and All Might stuff, as Izuku really doesn't care for All Might much at all. Izuku couldn't really think of a hero costume at all, so it really was just sort of like a greenish looking suit kind of thing, as Izuku really was confused, as the black and white hooded thing that he had come up with was his villain costume, and he can't just use his villain costume for hero work, as that really just wouldn't make any sense. As Izuku would be standing there, some of the students and classmates would ask why Izuku's costume looked so bland and boring. Izuku would place a hand behind his head, just saying, "Honestly, I really didn't know what to come up with. I haven't thought about it much, actually." So, let's begin this exercise. The first teams will be, let me think here, Izuku and Bakugo versus Uraraka and Todoroki, All Might would say, as the 4 students would nod their heads. "Bakugo, Izuku, you will be the heroes. Uraraka, Todoroki, you will be the villains." "Good luck," Uraraka would say towards Izuku. Izuku would nod his head. "As to you as well," Izuku would say. She would thank him before going off into the building to hide the device gratefully supplied to by the support course. As All Might would say that Izuku whose head would be filled with pictures of the support course lady that had so graciously helped him out just yesterday, in fact, he had so graciously helped out. Izuku just waiting for the 5 minutes to be over so he could head into the building, as he would finally go in. Once Izuku's inside, he would end up looking around, wondering where just Uraraka and Todoroki were. They happened to still be up on the top floor, in fact. So as Izuku would be wandering around the halls, all of this, and Bakugo would end up walking up to him. I think they're on the top floor, as why would one of them separate and leave one to protect the device? That really doesn't make any much sense. So, I feel like both of them are up there protecting it. So, if one of us were to go up there, they could easily defend us and take one out, and then when the other comes, they could take us out as well. So what you're saying is we should go together? Yes, exactly, Bakugo would say. As Izuku would in his head, they would walk throughout the halls, looking around every single corner, waiting for just someone to pop out at them. However, no one popped out, no one at all. As they would keep turning around, wondering where those people were, finally they would end up turning as there stood Todoroki, with his fingers drawn as fire would just blow right out of them. However, Izuku would jump in his way, creating a portal right in front of himself. As this portal would appear right behind Todoroki, as his fire would pelt the back of him. As Todoroki would fall over towards the ground, all of a sudden he would puff into smoke. What the hell was that? Bakugo would say, looking towards Izuku. Oh, nothing. It was just a fake I created. Jesus, you gave me a heart attack. Bakugo, hey, I wanted to test if that might actually work. What, creating a portal and putting the fire behind him? Yes, exactly. If I could do that, I could possibly take both of them out. It would say as finally both him and Bakugo would make it to the top floor. With both of them up at the top floor, each of them would reach towards the door handle, pulling it open. As there stood Todoroki and Uraraka, waiting for them. Both of them would walk in as Uraraka would get into a stance, as Todoroki would only stand there straight up looking at the two of them. Both of them would wait for someone to attack before Izuku would create a portal right underneath himself, disappearing. Todoroki, seeing this as an opportunity, would jump right towards Bakugo, with his ice drawn out in front of him. He would slash the ground as an iceberg would come out of nowhere. However, before the iceberg could reach him, Izuku would create a portal right in front of Bakugo, as the iceberg would disappear right into the portal, before reappearing right behind Uraraka, smashing into the back of her head. She would fall to the floor unconscious, not having done anything in the fight at all. As Izuku would then appear out of a portal in just the shadow of the device. As Izuku would go increasingly reaching towards the device of the sun, Todoroki would be there blocking the device, going for to punch Izuku's head. However, Izuku would duck underneath it, dodging, going continuously, trying to reach the device. However, all of a sudden, Uraraka would appear out of nowhere. You think I'd go down that easily? She'd say, holding on to Izuku's hand, just not letting him get any further. However, all of this, and Izuku would end up creating a portal underneath all of them, so all of them would end up disappearing right to the top of the building. As all of them were now at the rooftop, Todoroki would look around wondering where he was, and so would Uraraka. Izuku would separate himself from the two of them as both of them would look. Where'd you take us? Oh, it's simple. I only brought you to the top of the building. What? Why? This is why. And the heroes win! All Might would say, as since Todoroki and Uraraka were absent, Bakugo had easily been able to touch the device. And that is where part 3 of What If Deku Had a Chaos Quirk comes to an end. I hope you all did enjoy it, and if you did, please consider subscribing, so it really does help this channel out, and you can even be notified when the other parts of this series do end up coming out. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.